Are there any questions or comments? You have given me some questions. Okay, let's see. So if anyone wants to ask orally also, that's also fine. Okay. I'm attracted to spend time on watching every detail about my favorite actress. Can you please suggest how I can overcome this subtle addiction? Is it a subtle addiction? There's a natural attraction of the human heart and the human eyes to beauty. That attraction itself is not unnatural, and that attraction itself is not undesirable. But there is a way in which it is fulfilled in a healthy way. I was at a university, and sometimes people have provocative captions on their t-shirts. So this student had a caption: 90% of the world's women are beautiful. The remaining 10% are in my college. What it meant was that actually we see in the media all doctored images, made up images, and people look extremely attractive over there. And as compared to that, when we look in real life, nobody is that attractive. Now, this is simply a way in which dissatisfaction is created within us. So Śrīmad Prabhupada writes in the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, text 16, purport, that satisfaction is not just an emotion. Satisfaction is also a decision. I'm paraphrasing what he says. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that satisfaction is an austerity of the mind. What that means is, he says, the more we contemplate on sense objects, the more our mind gets agitated. It doesn't lead to satisfaction, it leads to dissatisfaction. But the more we contemplate on those objects, whichever it may be, it may not be form, it can be anything else. Whatever it is that we contemplate on, our agitation increases more and more. And when the agitation increases more and more, no matter what we have, we will not be satisfied. Satisfaction will come not just by acquiring what we desire. Satisfaction will come only when we appreciate what we have. Even if I acquire something that I desire, the world is always going to show me other attractive things. And then I'll keep desiring that, keep desiring that, keep desiring that. You see, the problem with the rat race is that even if you win the rat race, still you remain a rat. That means, see, in any situation I am in, there are certain things which I have and certain things which I don't have. If I am going to look at what I don't have, I'll be dissatisfied. If I look at what I have, I'll be satisfied. Now, I may think, I don't have this. When I get that, I'll become satisfied. Yes, hypothetically it seems right. I don't have it because if I'm dissatisfied, once I get it, I'll be satisfied. But the problem is not just what we have. When we keep looking at the things which we don't have, that itself becomes a habit. And no matter how much I have, my mind will look at what I don't have and I'll become dissatisfied. So we need to consciously cultivate the habit of looking at what we have and therein cultivate satisfaction. Say, suppose we have prasad after this program. Don't suppose, I think prasad is there. But suppose there is a special kind of prasadam arrangement that everybody is going to get different items. So what is in your plate is different from my plate, is different from what is in her plate. Now I have got delicacies in my plate, but if I start looking, oh, he's got that, oh, he has got that, oh, she has got that. as I keep looking at what is there in everyone else's plate, even if there's a feast in my plate, I'll be dissatisfied. Why? Because I'm not looking at what I have. So satisfaction can come only when we learn to focus on what we have and appreciate that. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to acquire more. But if we think that acquisition will give us satisfaction, that is an illusion. The satisfaction will come only by the change of disposition. Just by acquisition, I get the best car. By the time I get the best car, what happens is some other car has come which is looking better. And that will be a perpetual dissatisfaction. Oscar Wilde was a British playwright. He said that fashion is a form of ugliness so intolerable that we have to change it every 6 months. So what is considered fashionable today, after 6 months, it's old-fashioned. And for a person who prides themselves on being fashionable, there is no insult more painful than being called old-fashioned. It's intolerable. So, in a culture where attractive objects are paraded before us from various sides, unless we learn to focus on what we have, we will never know satisfaction. So, irrespective of specifically which desires we pursue or which desires we resist, the important principle is that we need to recognize that we have to, if at all we are able to get satisfaction, we need to change our disposition and focus on what we have. So, how to be materially successful while following Krishna consciousness? By following Krishna consciousness as it is, and not by following Krishna consciousness as our mind says it is. What that means, many times in India I used to go to colleges and do programs and give some mentoring to students. So many students, just before the exams, they fall in love with Ramayana and Mahabharata. Throughout the semester, sometimes they'll come for programs, sometimes they'll not come for programs. But when the preparatory leave is going on, they'll tell, studies, they're all mundane. They're all temporary. I'm a soul. I just want to love Krishna. So why should I study these books? I just study Ramayana and Mahabharata. So what has happened here is, the mind is looking for the path of least resistance. And then our Krishna Bhakti seems to be the path of lesser resistance than our academic studies. So the mind chooses that. But then the same students will read some philosophical books afterwards. So Krishna consciousness is a path where we want to offer our entire being to Krishna. And that means even our material talents, even our material abilities. It is that what we have is Krishna's gift to us. What we become is our gift to Krishna. So the talents that we have, the abilities that we have, the interests that we have, they are given to us by Krishna. And we are going to use them in His service. So if we think of Krishna consciousness only in terms that, I have to do I come to the temple, I associate with devotees, I chant, I dance, all that is good. But Krishna consciousness is not only that. Krishna consciousness, these activities are meant to infuse Krishna consciousness within us. And that consciousness is meant to be carried to all the aspects of our life. So, when a devotee does studies, when a devotee does one's job, a devotee wants to do it in the best possible way, but not for one's own ego. I want to be the number one. No, the devotee wants to do it for the service of Krishna. For say, I was in a university in India, so one student asked me, how can I make my friends into devotees? I told him, by studying nicely. If you study well, there is no guarantee that your friends will become devotees. But if you study poorly, there is guarantee your friends will never become devotees. Why? Because we have to understand that our spiritual life and our material life are not separated entirely. Both are meant for the service of Krishna. So first is in terms of attitude, that even in the material world, I want to do my best. And I do the best for the sake of Krishna, for pleasing Krishna, for serving Krishna, for attracting others to Krishna, for creating a sustainable material future for myself where I can serve Krishna more. By having financial security, by having social security, whatever it is. So we envision our whole life as a service to Krishna. Now, as I said earlier, sometimes it may appear that Krishna consciousness takes so much time that I don't have time to pursue my material life and material career. That is not exactly true, because as I said, Krishna consciousness saves the time which is otherwise taken away by our mind. That's one point. Second point is that with respect to the practice of Krishna consciousness, we need to learn the art of dynamic balance. Dynamic balance means that there are times in our life when we will need to focus more attention on our material life. Maybe we have project deadline, we have an exam, we have urgent family need. We should focus that time with that wholeheartedly. And when there is some opportunity for more spiritual association, there is some festival, at that time we spend more time on Krishna. So if we use our intelligence properly, we'll be able to know where to focus when. Śrīmad Prabhupada writes in the 10th chapter Bhagavad-gītā purport that intelligence means to see things in their proper perspective. So our nature, the mind is that it sees things out of perspective. And the mind says this is important, means this only is important, and everything else, send it into the trash bin. And after some time, hey, no, why did I send it into the trash bin? It is very important. Then what I consider very important, send that into the trash bin and take this up. So if we have an overall perspective of things, then we will be able to adjust. When I should focus more on my material life, when I should focus more on my spiritual life. That intelligent balance we can get, and we adjust. If I'm traveling somewhere, then if there's traffic, I'll go slowly. If traffic clears, I'll go fast. But sometimes when we want to do something, traffic may become more, so we go slowly at that time. In our life, I'm talking about traffic in terms of activities. Later on, we go faster. So that balance, it's very important to get that. And often, as I said, started by saying this answer that if we understand and practice Krishna consciousness as it is, not as our mind imagines it to be, then we can actually be focused and successful both materially and spiritually. So for that we need some guidance often from some seniors. If we get that, then that balance will come. Yes?
Give example of the guy who was suicidal, wanted to suicide. The intensity increases of Krishna consciousness when we are in misery or any problems, right? And after that it goes down. And I know that I've heard that it's a temporary happiness, whatever you got. You don't want to wait for another misery to be another that intensity. So how to keep that intensity
Okay. So the intensity in bhakti sometimes comes because of some distress we face. But when the distress goes away, the intensity also goes away. Yeah, so what to do? Well, there is circumstantial bhakti, there is intentional bhakti, and there is transcendental bhakti. So circumstantial bhakti means because the circumstances are there, that's why I'm practicing bhakti. Circumstances can be that, there's so much trouble, Krishna, I have no shelter except you. Or there are a lot of devotees who are doing, it's so nice, let me also do it. Circumstantial. It's largely dependent only on circumstances. It's good, at least in the circumstances we are coming to Krishna. So many people can go in so many other directions. But at a particular time, from the circumstantial, we have to move towards the intentional. Intentional means, I am going to do this because this is important for me. Because by my intelligence I have understood why this is important for me. That comes through philosophical understanding. Jiva Goswami is one of our prominent acharyas. He says that actually For the very advanced devotees, they stay on the spiritual platform because of their priti. They have so much attraction towards Krishna. So they are at the level of transcendental bhakti. What happens in circumstances, it doesn't matter to them. They are absorbed in Krishna. But it is for us, for those who are sadhakas, what keeps them on the spiritual platform is not priti. It is buddhi. It's intelligence. So with our intelligence, we have to cultivate the conscious intention to practice bhakti. And that intention can be strengthened by association. That intention can be strengthened by intellectual conviction, by studying scriptures, hearing classes. That intention can be strengthened by taking up some practical engagement which gives us a sense of contribution. Yes, I'm doing something here. So we have to find out how that intention can be strengthened through positive impetus, not just the negative impetus. And to the extent we solidify that intention, then that intention will keep us intense even when the circumstances are not necessarily impelling us to practice bhakti. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, there are 2 more questions as well. Okay, so the question is, if we have to evaluate our emotions, then is it that somebody who can evaluate their emotions, then for them to control the senses is also easy, or are they different? It depends on how closely the emotions and the desires are connected with each other. Or are the emotions and the senses which are kindling those emotions are connected with each other? Usually, our emotions are associated with our senses. I desire to eat I see something, I want to eat it, I want to watch this. So then that's how it creates some emotions. In general, controlling the mind is much more difficult than controlling the senses. Sometimes I will be agitated, but I will say I'm not going to do it. But to not get agitated itself, that requires much more advancement. That's why I said the first thing that happens when the practice of bhakti is the intelligence becomes awakened. The intelligence becomes awakened means I understand, okay, this desire may be there, this desire will be loud, but it's not an important desire for me. So I will not fulfill it. But when the mind gets controlled, that means at that point the desire stops screaming itself. That's a much deeper stage. So if somebody can evaluate the emotions and process the emotions, then naturally that means that the senses which are at a lower level, they'll be able to process the senses and control them also naturally, much more easily. Okay, there are 2 different questions here. How do I maintain my relationships with people who are materialistic? You see, the word materialistic can be a very value judgmental word. And if we become judgmental towards anyone, we can't maintain a relationship with them. If we are looking down at people, if we are labeling them. So what we have to see is not just materialistic. Within materialistic also there is the mode of goodness, there is the mode of passion, there is the mode of ignorance. There are some people who are pro-devotional. There are some people who are just non-devotional. There are some people who are anti-devotional. So some people say, okay, you do what you want to do, but don't force it on me. Some people say, okay, you do what you are doing, please tell me about it. You are doing, some people maybe, you are doing it, stop it right now. So this is non-devotional, pro-devotional and anti-devotional. So now these 3 different categories of people, we'll have to find out how to deal with them. If it's pro-devotional, it's not so difficult because we are practicing bhakti and we can share the bhakti according to how much they are receptive. Non-devotional, we have to understand that everybody is at different stage of spiritual evolution. So there is no need for us to impose bhakti on them. It's not that if they're not interested in bhakti, that doesn't necessarily make them bad. It just means that they're not ready right now. So if people don't know about Krishna, that is our problem. If people don't choose Krishna, then that is between them and Krishna. So Krishna will guide them. So we can share it with them initially. If they show no interest, we just stop it. Then we can relate with them at whatever other level. If there are relatives, there are friends, there are colleagues, whatever relationship is appropriate, just maintain that and don't try to impose Krishna Bhakti. If somebody is anti-devotional, then we'll have to see how to deal with them. If they're aggressively, constantly anti-devotional, then we may have to create a distance. This is what I'm going to live. This is how I'm living. These are my principles. And I'm not going to change them just because you want me to change them. But sometimes when a little distance is created, that person understands that you are not going to change, then we just stop it. And then we can work at a functional level with them. But if somebody is anti-devotional and then we bend to them, then what is happening? Then in order to maintain that relationship, we are giving up our relationship with Krishna. The ideal situation is when the temporary and the eternal relationships, the material and the spiritual relationships go together. When they don't go together, then there's synergy in the relationships. There's no synergy, then there is cooperation. There's no cooperation, at least there should be coexistence. So cooperation means both are working together. Coexistence, you live, I live, Gio or Ginedo. Like that. So we have to find out what modality works for those relationships. And if we are objective and non-judgmental, we can process them and we can move forwards. How can I have an entertaining life while following spiritual life? There are different, again, when I talk about entertainment, there are different kinds of entertainments. There are entertainments in goodness, there are entertainment in passion, there is entertainment in ignorance. Most of what people call as entertainment in today's world is actually not so much entertainment as it is escape from boredom. Now, what a society values can be understood in one way by seeing what the society pays for the most. So in today's world, who are the category of people who are paid the most? Sorry? Yeah. Sports persons, comedians, actors, yeah. Basically entertainers. You know, so a doctor who can heal a broken leg is paid 1/10 of someone who can kick with a leg. Entertainment has always been a part of human life. But the compulsiveness, the obsessiveness with which people seek entertainment in today's world, that is unprecedented. Sports is fine. Actually, playing sports is better than watching sports. At least there's some exercise. But okay, you want to entertain, watch sports. But the kind of obsessiveness. There are sports fans who go on riot if their favorite team starts losing. There are sports fans who commit suicide if their favorite team loses. So why this obsession? That obsession is because real life is so boring. Real life as we live it is so boring for most people. That they want entertainment as a way to escape from the emptiness of life. So this emptiness has become so pervasive, so deep, that people are ready to pay phenomenal amounts of money just to get an escape from it. Just to get an escape, they are paying huge amounts of money. So, yes, we may feel, there is so much entertainment out there, and I'm missing out on that entertainment. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. But another way of looking at it is, why is such that mania about entertainment? That is because People are not going to entertainment to get entertained. They're actually going there to forget the emptiness and the pointlessness of their lives. And forgetting that is simply a painkiller. It's like I have a disease, and when I have the disease, I don't know what the medicine is. So just take painkiller. And okay, the painkiller works for some time, but the disease is worsening. Then I need a stronger dose of painkiller. Then again I continue and I need a stronger dose of painkiller. In India there are two prominent painkillers. One is Bollywood and the second is cricket. And if you see from 1950s, 1960s, even 1970s to 2000, 2010, the dosage of the painkiller is increasing. Isn't it? The violence in the movie is much, much more now. In cricket, if you see, earlier we had 5-day cricket. Now, then we had test matches, then we had 1-day cricket. Then we have T20. And then I think about 10 years ago, these two painkillers, Bollywood and cricket, they got married. And they produced a child named IPL. So, basically, actually the amount of money that is spent on IPL every year is more than the money that is needed to feed all the starving people in India throughout the year. Just the magnitude. And I got nothing against cricket or Bollywood per se. That's not the point which I'm making. Entertainment is fine where it goes. But when entertainment is used as a painkiller to cover up the disease that is there, the emptiness and the pointlessness of life, that becomes very destructive. So rather than feeling that I'm missing out on the entertainment, why is this compulsive need for entertainment there? Because the heart is empty. And the heart can be truly fulfilled not just by some entertainment. The cure for the disease of the empty heart is actually a heart that is filled with the presence of Krishna. So the practice of bhakti is what will actually bring fulfillment. Now, while practicing bhakti, depending on, when you go to a doctor, the main thing the doctor gives is the medicine, the curative medicine. And then depending on the particular amount of disease, the kind of disease that the patient has, the patient may be also given some painkiller. The painkiller should never be the main course, main treatment. The curative medicine is the main treatment. Along with that, painkiller can be taken as is appropriately needed for the doctor. And some of the doctors may not even prescribe. So when you feel the pain, you take the medicine. So it's up to them. So we all may have different levels of need for entertainment. But if entertainment becomes our main source of dealing with life, then we are not dealing with life actually. We are going deeper into the illusion of life. So in bhakti, there are different kinds of entertainments available. We can learn music, we can learn dancing, we can learn various activities. And then along with bhakti, as I said, there's pro-devotional, there's non-devotional, anti-devotional. So we want to avoid the anti-devotional forms of entertainment. Pro-devotional forms of entertainment. If you want something, if you have some interest in something which is some general knowledge, something which is not going against the principles of bhakti, that is also fine. So entertainment is something which is like a painkiller, and that has to be taken in moderation. But the real thing which entertainment promises to fulfill, but doesn't fulfill, that is the emptiness of the heart, and that can be fulfilled only by the practice of Krishna Bhakti. Okay? So, okay, I think I answered this question. This is about, I heard that watching movies spoils the mind, but I can't give it up. What should I do? Actually, as I said, if you understand what is the need that is being fulfilled, or that is being promised to be fulfilled, and see if that need can be fulfilled in some other way. We have a particular desire, but more important than that is, what is the need? Is it loneliness? Is it companionship? Is it just relief from boredom? Is it just going out for somewhere? So we all have certain valid needs, But depending on the way the mind is conditioned, that valid need, we try to fulfill it often in ways that are not so beneficial. So if you look at what that valid need is, and see that if it's a loneliness, then is there some other way I can bond myself? If it's boredom, then how can I address that boredom in a more healthy way? We find that out, and that's how we can deal with it practically. Okay, it's interesting. Please let me know till what time we should take. All of them? No, I'm okay. I don't know for all of them. Okay. How can I stop myself from comparing with people who are not following the spiritual life, but they are much more happy in their life? Yeah, this can become quite difficult because we say we are practicing spiritual life to be happy. But if somebody else seems to be happier, there are two different things over here. One is that the purpose of spiritual life and the process of spiritual life. In spiritual life, at the end, when we become purified, when we get connected with Krishna, we will be supremely, eternally happy. But right now, we are all in a diseased condition. All of this material world is like a hospital, and everybody has disease. Now, while we are diseased, there are some people who are very acutely diseased, some people who are not so acutely diseased. Everybody is diseased, but sometimes some diseases, they have a high phase, sometimes they don't have such a high phase. So, sometimes it may be that people who are not practicing Krishna Bhakti, they may be going through a phase in their life where, based on the past good karma that they have done, they are relatively in a comfortable situation. And that's why they appear to be happy. So it's not that we have to say that they are not happy. They can be happy. But it is temporary. The result of the past karma which they have and whatever action they are doing right now, that is providing some happiness. But that's not going to last forever. On the other hand, we may be right now going through a phase where some bad karma is going through. So we may be having some problems right now. But the more important thing is whether if a person is in a hospital and that person is sick, and there are two people. One is in greater pain because the sickness is more in acute phase. The other is in not much pain because the sickness is not in an acute phase. But suppose the first person, the disease has been diagnosed and a treatment has been prescribed. For the second person, the disease has not been diagnosed and no treatment has been prescribed. Then, at present, the second person may be happier. But in the long run, it is the first person who is going to be happier. So, for us as devotees, our disease has been diagnosed and the treatment has been prescribed. So, while the disease is there, some pain may still be there. But if we are taking the treatment, we will be treated and we will be cured. So therefore, we have to have patience. Śrīmad Prabhupada would say, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Is this one instruction or is this two instructions?
One.
Is it by chanting Hare Krishna we'll become happy? Or should we chant Hare Krishna and be happy? They are both. There is a verse in the Bhagavatam 1:2:22 which says that Atavai kavayo nityam bhaktim paramaya muda vasudeve bhagavati kurvante atma prasadane. So it says that that's why the great sages Atavai kavayo nityam, the wise sages, they constantly practice joyfully the process of bhakti. Kavayo nityam bhaktim paramaya muda. They practice bhakti with great joy. Vasudeve Bhagavati, unto Lord Vasudeva. Kurvanti, this process of bhakti they practice. What happens by that? Atma prasadani. That which will bring joy to the heart. So, if the translation, if I focus on the point is, they joyfully practice the process that brings joy. Now, so is joy something that comes at the end of the process, or is joy something which we bring to the process? It is both. It is that when we become healed of our material attachments, when we become spiritually attached to Krishna, at that time joy will be constant. But right now, like earlier I said, if a patient is sick and has been sick for a long time, just the fact that now I have got a treatment that works, that itself is a source of joy. My disease is not gone till now, but just getting the treatment, that itself is such a big relief. If some of you have had some disease which is sick for a long time but nobody is able to diagnose. At one time I was in 2002, 2003. I was sick for 1.5 years, going from this doctor to that doctor. Nobody is able to diagnose what the problem is. Finally I went to a doctor, and this doctor, he wrote in the diagnosis, PUO. So I said, what is exactly something to diagnose? At last I found out. I asked, what is the diagnosis? No diagnosis. I said, it is PUO. PUO is pyroxia of unknown origin. Pyroxia is fever. Fear whose cause we don't know. So that I also know. So if you don't know the disease, it's just so miserable. So after 1.5 years they diagnosed that I had TB. It took 1.5 more years to cure the TB, because by that time it becomes so advanced. But still, because the treatment was there, there's a relief. I know, this has been diagnosed, it's been treated, and I can see I'm healing. So we needn't fragment the present from the process. If you fragment the present from the process, then we will feel that, oh, so many other people are happier than what I am. But if you see the process, then we understand that we can be grateful that I can be grateful and joyful that I have the process of recovery, I have the process of treatment, and by this I will become joyful in due course. Sometimes I find that devotee life is boring and I mingle with less serious devotees. How do I stop it? Yes, boredom is something which is it's a more serious problem than starvation. No, I'm not joking. It's serious because, as I said, to relieve boredom, people are ready to spend more money than what they are ready to spend to relieve starvation. So, of course, boredom comes from various reasons. One is that what we are doing is not interesting, or we are not interested in what we are doing. So now, at our level, sometimes our mind wavers and we don't find Krishna Bhakti very interesting. At other times, it may be just that whatever is going on is not very relevant for us, or we feel it's not very relevant for us. So for us to have sustainable taste in Bhakti, if we consider, say, this is the circle of Krishna Bhakti, and this is a circle of things that interest me, we have to find what is the intersection. There will be some things which are not intersecting, something which interests me, which I may have to give up for the practice of Krishna Bhakti. But there are some things which fall in the intersection. So for some of us it may be music, for some of us it may be cooking, some of us it may be going out and doing dancing in kirtans, distributing books. For some of us it may be just understanding the philosophy. Or we may have some specific talents. Somebody likes to do some Photoshop design and you do that for Krishna. Somebody likes to do video processing and they make videos for Krishna. I was in America. There's one devotee's child. He was brilliant in robotics. He is just 5.5 and he had won a state level award for making a robot. But he had no interest in Krishna Bhakti. Not 5.5, maybe 8.5. So 9 years old. There's no interest in Krishna Bhakti. So the parents are asking, he'll stay awake whole night to do robot, to make something with robot, to read books about it, to watch videos and make something. But there's no interest in going to the temple. So what can we do? So then I told him that he can make a robo of Krishna and Arjuna having the discussion of Bhagavad Gita. So he heard about it. He said, first he said no. He said, then he thought about it. He said, everybody is making different projects, but nobody is doing anything like this. Then, in order to make the robo, he started reading the Bhagavad Gita. He became interested in it. And now he is actually working on the project quite seriously. Studying the Bhagavad Gita and getting the robot to speak the Sanskrit verses and to speak the translations. So what we have to do is we have to just be a little more creative to find out what our circle of interest is and where it intersects with the circle of Krishna Bhakti. So we shouldn't think that Krishna Bhakti is just some stereotyped activity. There is a lot that we can do in Krishna Bhakti. And if we have this inclusive understanding, then we can find out how we can address the issue of boredom while still staying within the precincts of Krishna Bhakti. Yeah. How to overcome lusty desires even after following regulative principles? Yeah, it's quite difficult. I'd say there are broadly 3 steps. When I say this, it's not that I'm sitting on a high pedestal and saying that I won the war. Nobody, as long as in the material world, they can say they won the war. Everybody is fighting. But these are 3 broad principles. One is one is redirection, restriction, and reconstruction. I'll explain what I mean by this. See, if the water, if say I have a floor which is inclined in a particular way, then as soon as water falls on that, water is going to flow in that direction. So if I just decide I don't want the water to flow in this direction, then my decision is of no use. The water is going to flow in that direction. So because the floor is inclined in that way. Similarly, for us, our mental floor is inclined in particular ways. So when the mental floor is inclined in that way, say in youth, naturally the particular kind of desires are strong. So when the mental floor is inclined in that way, the thoughts and the desires will automatically flow in that direction. So if I don't want the water to flow in that direction, what do? I have to push the water back in the other direction. That is redirection. Water is going to push it back in that direction. So when the thoughts go in some unwanted direction, we have to pull the thoughts back. That is just the first step, and we cannot keep doing this all the time, but that's the first step. The second is that restriction. Okay, the water is going in this direction, then just create some small wall over there so the water doesn't flow in that direction. So if we find that there are particular things that trigger our desires, then try to minimize the exposure. So we can't close our eyes and function in the world, but it's important that we stay aware of our triggers and either stay away from them or minimize the contact with them. So it's important that we never go into the blaming mode. In the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna talks about lust, he analyzes where is it situated. And he says, Indriyani mano buddhir asyadhisthana muchyate. Etai vimohayattesha jnanam avruttidehina. He says lust is situated in the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. So he doesn't say lust is situated in the sense objects. So we can't blame anyone else for our getting agitated. But when we don't want to blame anyone else, if certain stimuli agitate us, then without blaming those stimuli, we can create a safe distance in whatever way is practical for us. So that is the restriction. So the third step is reconstruction. Reconstruction is, if I don't want water to flow in this way, I have to reconstruct the flow so the water flows in another direction. So that reconstruction is what happens by the gradual purification that comes with the practice of bhakti. By that, as we keep practicing bhakti, our mind will become more and more inclined towards Krishna. And then, when we need pleasure, we are innately pleasure-seeking creatures. So when we need pleasure, right now our mind has associated pleasure with a particular thing. And that's why the water flows in that direction. Our thoughts go in that direction when we want pleasure. But as we keep practicing bhakti and get purified, then gradually the mind will get inclined towards Krishna, and whenever we need pleasure, we'll think about Krishna. We'll do some devotional activity. Look at a picture of Krishna, we will chant names of Krishna, and we will connect with Krishna and get that pleasure thereby. So for us, in our particular situation, the redirection, the restriction, and the reconstruction. There are three broad steps that are required. And specifically how we do it, that we'll have to use our God-given intelligence to decide it. But more important than controlling lusty desires or overcoming lusty desires is more important than that is cultivating spiritual desires. Because we are by nature conscious, and to be conscious means to be desirous. So now, if I say touch this mic, I feel an electric current in this mic. And I decide I will not touch this mic. So with respect to physical objects, I can decide I will not touch it. But with respect to the mind, we cannot not think of something. If I tell you, psychologists call this, there are various experiments for it, they call it the pink monkey experiment. I tell you, if I tell you for the next 30 seconds, please don't think of a pink monkey. In your life, you may never thought of a pink monkey till now. But you will think of a pink monkey at that time. So what happens is, because the mental world is subtle, in not thinking of something also we are thinking of that thing. I will not think of a pink monkey. Hey, but I thought of a pink monkey. So we cannot not think of something. It's more that we have to think of something positive. So if our focus is too much on overcoming the negative, what happens, we are still caught in the negative itself. So it's more important that we cultivate positive desires. Cultivate desires to directly connect with Krishna, and cultivate desires to do other constructive activities in our service to Krishna. So when we activate these positive desires, activate the positive activities, then our consciousness gets more filled by that. So lower desires cannot be driven out, but they can be crowded out. They try to drive out, catch the person and push out. I will not think of this, I will not think of this. What will happen? I will not think of this, I will not think of this, I will not think of this. Mind comes quietly and erases the knot. I will not think of this, I will not think of this, I will think of this. So we'll think of it and we'll do it. So rather than focusing on giving up the negative, we focus more on taking up the positive. And as our mind becomes filled with Krishna, then gradually filled with Krishna or filled with constructive activities in service to Krishna, then gradually the negative is crowded out of the mind. And no matter how the desires are present, the most important thing is that we don't consider the presence of the desires as something necessary to indulge in the desire. Temptations may come, but we don't have to welcome it. They'll come, but I can say, okay, it's there, then just because it is there doesn't mean I have to indulge in it. It will come, it will stay for some time, it will go. I'll conclude with the last one example. Suppose somebody has a pet dog, and they themselves petted it, fondled it, loved it. And now they come to know that that dog has got rabies. Now they don't want to touch the dog also. The dog will bite me and kill me. So now the dog comes along. I say that, oh, I love this dog so much. Go away. And the dog thinks, hey, my master is playing with me. Dog comes again. Go away. The dog comes again. Go away. Come again. And the dog looks with such a longing at us. I think, oh, this dog is so sweet. Let's go and fondle it. As soon as we fondle it, the dog says, oh, my master loves me. My master is playing a game with me. So what happens? Again 10 times I may say no to it, but the dog will still keep coming. So what happens with us is, before we came to Bhakti, it's quite possible that we ourselves petted the lower desires. We fondled them, we nourished them. And now when we understand that this desire is not so good, I want to give them up. But at one level we want to give them up, at another level we want to fondle them also. So because both these dynamics are there, so because of that, go away. So we say, externally say go away, internally don't go away. So because of that, they will not go away so easily. So if we focus too much on sending away those desires, because that affection is still there, sending them away becomes very difficult. But at the same time, if we keep fondling them, they will never go away. So the best thing is to just turn the thought away from that. So we can't expect that the desires will never come. The desires will come, but they don't have to overcome us. So the more we think about them, the stronger they will grow and the more they will overcome us. But if we just fill our life with positive activities, focus on cultivating positive desires, then gradually these desires will come under control. So we don't define our spiritual advancement in terms of how much we are controlling these desires. We define our spiritual advancement primarily in terms of how we are connecting with Krishna and how we are activating our spiritual desires in relationship with Krishna. The more we do that, the more other desires will be gradually overcome. Quickly take this question. So if a devotee is facing material problems for a long time, and despite having practiced bhakti, the problem is not going away, and that devotee starts losing faith in Krishna, saying that Krishna is not solving my problem. So how do we encourage the devotee? Because at that time philosophy will not satisfy them. Yes, it's true. Especially when problems go on for a long time, it becomes very difficult to continue. So at some time in our life, we will have to choose between our conception of Krishna and the scriptural revelation of Krishna. We all have a particular conception of Krishna. That means, what is God meant to do? So I think God should be my problem solver. God should be my desire fulfiller. So that is one understanding. Even if that understanding come to Krishna, that is good. But sometime or other in the course of our life, this conception is going to be challenged. And we need to rise to a higher conception. It is not that Krishna will not solve our problems, but it is rather that if that is all we expect from Krishna, and that means what? It's like basically we are determining God's job description. And now when God is not doing his job, we want to fire God. I'm not saying that our problems are trivial. Sometimes the problems can be very serious. But the point is, the terms of our relationship with Krishna have to be clear. We don't determine Krishna's job description. Krishna determines ours. We are the servants of Krishna. This does not at all mean that Krishna doesn't care for us. It simply means that Krishna cares for us from a long-term perspective. So we look at the present and prepare for the future. Krishna looks at the future and prepares for the present. So Krishna looks at the future and prepares for the present. Because of that, the way we see things and the way Krishna sees things are different. So when a problem has been going on for a long time and not getting solved, then it is best that we learn to change our expectation from Krishna. rather than expecting a release from the problem, we can seek relief amidst the problem. Relief amidst the problem means that although the problem is there externally, if I absorb myself in Krishna, I experience relief. Often the problem is there, the more we think about the problem, we get agitated. But at that time we think about Krishna, that brings us calmness, that brings us strength. So in the Madhava Vaishnava tradition, an example is given of how this relief amidst problems comes. That, say there's a child who has not done homework, and at school there's a strict teacher. The strict teacher is going to punish the child. Beat with a stick on the child hand. Now the mother knows the child has not done the homework. The mother doesn't want the child to be punished. At the same time, mother also wants the child not to be lazy. Child should do the homework well. So what does the mother do? When the child is going to school, the mother puts a nice thick glove on the child's hand. And the child goes to school. Have you done your homework? No. Come here. Teacher says. Show your hand. Show the hand. The stick hits. The stick hits. A loud noise comes. But the glove shields from the pain. So although the blows hit, but the blows don't hurt. Because the glove is in between. So the mother is like Krishna. The child, we are all like the errant child. And material nature, Maya Devi, which gives us the results of our karma, is like the teacher. And remembrance of Krishna is like the glow. When we are absorbed in Krishna, when we remember Krishna, life's blows will hit us, but they won't hurt us. A devotee may have a disease, and a non-devotee may get a disease. The non-devotee, both may be in pain, but the non-devotee in pain will, ouch! That will not provide any relief. But devotee is Krishna. And that absorption in Krishna will provide some relief. So the glow of Krishna Bhakti, the glow of the remembrance of Krishna is there with us. But suppose, while going to the school, the child says, what is the use of this glow? I don't need the glow. Child takes the glow and throws it away. And then goes to school. The child gets it. So, what is happening for us is, Krishna has provided us the glow. There is the remembrance of Krishna. So if we take shelter of that remembrance of Krishna, we will get relief amidst the problem also. And that relief amidst the problem can sometimes give us, can lead to far greater advancement, that can lead to far greater toughness in life than simply release from the problem. So if we make our relationship with Krishna conditional to the release from particular problems, then the relationship will be unsteady. But if we focus on getting relief amidst the problem, we will always get that. And that will make us stronger, and in due course, the problem will also go. But we will not just be free from the problem, we will actually have gained deeper realization of Krishna. So, we as devotees, we need to seek not a problem-free life, but a purposeful life. If we expect a problem-free life, we'll never get that in this world. But a purposeful life means, my purpose is to go closer to Krishna. My purpose is to serve Krishna in whatever situation I am. So Srila Prabhupada once asked, what is the best prayer we can offer to Krishna? He said, pray to Krishna, please give me the strength to serve you. So when the problem is there, rather than asking Krishna, Krishna, why don't you remove this problem? Ask Krishna, please give me the strength to serve you. And if you do that, you'll find that Krishna does give us strength. So when we are down to nothing, Krishna is up to something. When we are down to nothing, Krishna is up to something. So what Krishna is up to, it may take some time to realize that. But we can know that, have that conviction and persevere and seek relief amidst the problem. Okay, this is a similar question. This is the last question. Are there any other questions here? Okay, fine. So I'm new to Krishna Bhakti, chanting since 2 years. Can I expect Krishna to give me a job so that I can follow Krishna Bhakti peacefully? What makes Krishna Bhakti exciting is that we can never know what to expect from Krishna. What we can expect that Krishna will always do that which is good for us. But what is good for us, the way we think of and the way Krishna thinks of, that is different. So, what we can focus on, naturally, in Bhakti there are two aspects. There is dependence on Krishna and there is diligence for Krishna. So, when I started giving classes about 20-25 years ago for the first time, one senior devotee gave some list of guidelines of how to give a class. And the last guideline was, depend on Krishna. But in bracket, but only after you have prepared. So, even when I am speaking about Krishna, I cannot just simply be dependent on Krishna. I have to prepare. So Bhakti has these two aspects. There is dependence on Krishna and there is diligence for Krishna. Whatever we do it diligently in the mood of service to Krishna. Surrender has two different examples. One is that Draupadi, she raises her hands in helplessness. Krishna, I am dependent on you, protect me. The Bhagavad Gita ends with Krishna telling Arjuna, surrender to me. Arjuna says, yes, Karishya Vachanantam, I will surrender. But at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna doesn't raise his hand in surrender. Arjuna raises his bow in readiness to fight. So for him, that readiness to fight is surrender. So Draupadi and Arjuna are in two different situations. So broadly speaking, there are in our life, there are some things which are in our control, some things which are not in our control. So that for the things which are in our control, our surrender is through diligence for Krishna. So if I have to give a class, then the diligence for Krishna is that I prepare properly for the class. If I want to get a job, the diligence for Krishna is that I prepare for the interviews, I do my studies, I do whatever is required on my side so that I can pass the interviews and get the job. And simultaneously, there are things which are not in our control. For those things, there is dependence on Krishna. In material consciousness, when we don't have Krishna in picture, then what happens? We think either things are in my control or things are out of my control. When things are in my control, I feel confident. If things are out of my control, I feel nervous, I feel worried. But in Bhakti, we understand that things that are not in my control are not out of control. They are in Krishna's control. So, we can have dependence on Krishna for the things that are not in our control. So, therefore, what we can do is, with respect to a job, is we do our best with our studies, with our preparation, so that we can get a good job. But if that doesn't work out immediately, know that Krishna has a plan. And it is with that plan we can be peaceful. Not peaceful in the sense of being passive. Not peaceful in the sense of being lazy. Not peaceful in the sense of being apathetic. But peaceful in the sense that we are purposeful in doing what we can do and in leaving to Krishna that which is not in our control. And in due course, we will find that Krishna will arrange things in a way that is the best for us. So if we base our relationship with Krishna on a particular expectation, Krishna, will you do this for me? Then we are restricting our conception of Krishna or what Krishna can do for us. But rather, we open. Krishna, I want to serve you. And I feel that if I get a job soon, then I'll be able to practice Krishna Bhakti nicely. So this is my prayer. And so there's no harm in offering our prayer to Krishna and in requesting Him. But we don't make our relationship with Krishna dependent on that, even the fulfillment of that prayer. So Prabhupada writes, the mood of devotion is that we desire, but we don't demand. We desire, that's fine, but we don't demand. So the mood of a devotee, this is what I feel is the best for me. So I pray to you for this. But if this doesn't work out, then Krishna, whatever is your plan, please guide me. Please give me the strength to serve you. So if we have that mood of submissive devotion, which is a combination of diligence and dependence, then whatever situation life sends our way, we will grow through it and move towards Krishna through it. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhaktivedanta ki, Gaur Premanande. Thank you much. Thank you very much for your thoughtful questions and for your prolonged patience. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.